Okay, I first want to get the disappointment out of everybody's mind. If you came here to see hieroglyphics or equations, you're out of luck. This is going to be a little straightforward. This presentation, it was very interesting to me that they gave me the call and what I was going to do, because about 3.5 years ago I was given a call from Hearts, and it was a DUG conference up in Fort Worth, and they asked me if I'd give a presentation. And, you know, you asked a guy that talks all the time if he'd give a presentation. Yeah, well, sure. And I said, what am I going to talk about? They said they don't know. And I said, well, then they finally came back with a title. And the title is this one, The Export of North American Technology. And the good news was, I asked them, I said, can I say anything I want to? And they said, sure. And I thought, oh my God, that's great. And I had a lot of fun with this. And I'm going to give that to you with a little bit of changes in that presentation, and kind of bring you up to date of what's going on. We're in a really strange time in our industry. And maybe just first of all, start out with this. If we're going to export technology, it would be nice if we agreed on what it is. Much in the manner of the Democrats and the Republicans, and I think most of you understand maybe what I'm talking about, that there's a lot of disagreement. The problem in our industry, as most of you know, there is no textbook. There is no teaching of hydraulic fracturing in colleges. So where do we get information? Well, we get it from a whole bunch of people. And what's been going on the last few years has been very dramatic, and it's driven some people to perversion. Because what is working and what is successful, as I'll talk about a lot this morning, is counter to virtually all of frac theory that we've had for 30, 40 years. For a guy that teaches hydraulic fracturing, I've had to change a lot of slides, which is a big problem if you've been a teacher. But it's very true. There's consternation, and the thing that gets you in trouble, just to start from that, is intuitive reasoning, things that this has to work, or this is the way it happens. Somebody talked to outside said, you know, somebody was telling me where the sand goes, and it goes out and it goes up and around, and I said, well, I only got one eye, but I can see down there just as good as he can. And when somebody starts telling you where stuff's going, downhole 2 miles in the earth, hold on to your billfold, you know. And we can talk about microseismic, and we will, and other things. But anyway, you're moving along. Hundreds of thousands. In fact, I think it was 13 or 14, and Steve might correct me. Our little company, we were involved in 60,000 frac stages. One of the things that we do as a company is we can give you the 50,000 foot look. We're very, as you'll see, prejudiced about what we believe, but if you want to pump diamonds, we'll polish them for you and put them down hole. We might put a few in our pocket, and sometimes it almost gets that bad, and people have ideas and concepts and so forth. The vast majority, particularly today, and 3 or 4 years ago, it wasn't quite that big, are basically water, friction reducer, and small proppant. And when I say small proppant, I mean small proppant. We have tons of people pumping only 100 mesh, and as you know, there's people pumping even smaller proppants, and based on standard classical fracture theory, that can't possibly work. Well, what does that tell you? Maybe our classical fracture theory needs to be changed a little bit. One part of the U.S., there are cross-link fracture treatments being pumped with very low concentrations of polymer, which do not, even in the wildest of imaginations, exhibit good proppant transport. I had a conversation there's been a lot of things kind of jumping at me lately, and this guy said, well, we run a 12-pound cross-link and it looks real good. Well, it may feel good and it may look good, but it doesn't support proppant. And in that particular area, part of their problem is that they're putting all their proppant, and this is a more conventional play, guess what, in the bottom of the zone. And what is typically in the bottom of the zone? If there's any water drive or if there's water mechanism, you're going to put it there. might ought to get away. And by the way, I will tell you, and this is an evil thing to say, but I'll go ahead and say it anyway. This deal about gel damage is pretty much a scam. Okay, can I be more tactful than that? Maybe not. But if 60 pounds of residue destroys your frac job, you need to maybe consider that 13% of your sand turns into fines, and maybe that residue might work better as a fluid loss control mechanism and not worry about damaging the proppant pack. Another area of the country, cross-linked gel being pumped in some shales. They're either not stable at bottom temperatures, and I was told when we published a paper about all this, I had to call them pseudo because fake was a bad word. But I'm not really too terribly worried about being politically correct. So fake hybrids. A real hybrid, we have done some pumping of that, and they don't work at all. Mixing technology. And part of the problem in our industry, people fall in love with words. And in my opinion, a true hybrid where you have stable, perfect proppant transport fracturing fluid, and ahead of that you run slick water, we've actually done that, and that didn't work at all. But if you have that cross-linked gel and you run a low concentration and you run a ton of breaker and it turns into water, then you're actually running a water frac. And that doesn't work too well. Well, it works well because it's a water frac, but you're not doing a hybrid system. Just because it says the word cross-link doesn't mean you have perfect proppant transport or you're doing what you think you are. In another area of the country, conventional cross-link fluids are being pumped in a reservoir. Virtually everyone, particularly financial people, term as a shale, when in reality, formation is very conventional. It may come as a shock to you, but some of the bigger shale plays are not shale at all. They have permeability. In fact, very good permeability. Be double top secret, we could say something. If we want to get north, we could talk about the Montney. We can talk about the Middle Bakken and so forth. Well, why do we call it shale? Have any financial people in here today? Financial people like it to be called shale, okay? So we call it shale. And there's a lot of carbonates and so forth where that sort of thing is going on. And in that particular area, which is the Bakken, they've had a revolution and now they're running slick water and plug and perf in many areas now. We have a plethora of sleeve-type casing completions which may or may not be cemented. We have complex tools, there's single entry point and others multiple entry. We have stages that are conducted using balls or darts. Others where stage is accomplished using coil tubing. Based on some recent studies, 90% of the lateral completions outside of the Bakken and Canada are plug and perf. And one thing we kind of like to stand back and watch is what's working. We've been involved in side-by-side completions, and if you have questions, we can tell you what you think. But what truly works well, if there was a word I would say to you, you need to control where your fracturing fluid is going. Why do Packer-type completions sometimes not work? Maybe it may be as fundamental as you probably don't want to try to set a Packer in a naturally fractured formation. That sounds pretty simplistic, but if you don't have any isolation, where's your frac going to go? Where it wants to go, okay? There was a lively argument, and this gets kind of silly, on the required length of each stage within a lateral, and also a long and drawn-out discussion, not only number of perforations, but also how many clusters should be used. Everybody's been through that? Okay. Well, you can cheat, I will tell you, maybe you know that. If you are drilling, and most of them are not, they're drilling with oil-based mud. If you're drilling with water-based mud, you can cheat. You can run a microimaging log and you can find out where the fractures are and you can perforate into them. And it's amazing. You don't have tortuosity and you can do an optimum type stimulation instead of, well, I'm going to run 4 clusters and I'm going to do a study and run 6 clusters or 8 clusters and I'm going to come from 500 feet to 300 feet. That's not science. That's statistics. But it also transcends. And guess where we're going in the industry? Because this is pretty straightforward and pretty simple. We're going to what really matters in these nano-Darcy rock. We're going to surface area. Guess what works best in these? volume. I didn't say sand. I said volume. Actually, the studies that we've done, and we've published about that, is that we think volume of fluid is more important than volume of sand. Now, that's almost heresy in our industry because everybody wants to pump massive amounts of sand. But to pump massive amounts of sand, you have to pump a lot of fluid. And we've done correlations. Another little point for you, and most of you know this, God may know what individual wells produce in Texas, but nobody else does. Have you done any studies and tried to find out what individual wells produce? God help you, and you need God's help there. Because maybe it's purposeful or whatever it is. Now you can go up into Canada and you can get well by well studies and so forth, but it's a real problem. And the way we did a study, we took thousands of wells and put them all together, because that's what they do. They'll have 10 wells and give you the production of 10 wells, and then they average that. Now that doesn't help if you've run CNF on 5 and et cetera, that kind of thing, to try to learn and try to understand what's going on. People ask me in frac schools, what is the technology for perforating? And I tell them it's the length of the lubricator divided by the number of select fire guns. And then you get down on your knees and pray, dear God, we hope we perforated close to a fracture. Right? That's the technology that we have. There's things coming, and we really hope, but I haven't found anything that could give me anything to truly see where the actual fractures are. And I haven't had any fun with, if anybody knows about an OMI, I haven't had any fun. Everybody's been promised me they're going to show me they can give me a microimage log in oil-based mud. I have still waiting, like looking around in Sodom and Gomorrah for a good person. I'm still looking for a log that shows that, but it is important. Whoa. Sorry, I hit the wrong button, I think. We're told by the media that the answer is new technology, using propane or butane as our frac fluid. I spend some of my time with investor calls. People call me, and 5 years ago or 6 years ago, whenever, they called me and said, what do you think of this magical new gas frac? And I said, magical new? It was magical and new in 1967, 68. It didn't work then, it ain't gonna work now. Well, you're really prejudiced and mean, they were telling me, because we've been told this is gonna solve all the problems. And I said, it can't possibly work. Well, that's prejudicial. And they said, why? And I said, well, because, big shock, it takes surface area open in these low permeability rocks. And I don't think many of us are going to pump 10,000 barrel propane jobs. Plus, another thing is I told them I'd be watching the jobs with binoculars from a distance. And one of the rare times I was truly right. And you know what? One of the problems in my career is I want to make new mistakes. I don't want to make the same dumb things over again. And that was a sad situation. Good people, well-meaning, and they've been told if we can stop the damage in the rock, we can do a better job of fracturing. Let me tell you something, people. God may be able to damage the Eagleford and the Marcellus and the Barnett and the Woodford. But us humans with 200 nanodarcy rock ain't going to damage, because you can't even get fluid in the rock. How are you going to damage and swell clays when you can't penetrate the rock? Guess what our industry's found by trial and error? That they can run just about anything and they don't damage the rock. Oh, that's heresy. Well, and you know what? There's some technology, and I was discussing this with some of the research people here, that we need to investigate, you know, the whys and how this can be done, how we can enhance it. But for right now, worrying and running, somebody told me in a meeting out here, somebody's bringing back 7% KCl. God help you. You don't need it, trust me, okay? Now, and most of you may or may not, but I got to tell you about my really super pet peeve. Anybody that spells frack with a K, guns and knives will not protect you. I mean, You know, the Houston Chronicle and others. That drives me completely crazy. But anyway, that's just a small deal. And also, those of you, and the people are going to bring back oil fracks. And I said, well, you need to know that it is a federal offense. Now, you can pump crude with a permit, but if you try to pump diesel in a well, you go to jail. Actually, I kind of like that, because I have literally sat by people that had 3/4 of their body burned. And they knew, and I knew they were dying. And it isn't worth a crap, excuse my terminology. It is not a good fracturing fluid. And it's used a lot in Canada, but interesting enough, they're running the hell out of big water fracks up there now. Water is not an evil, terrible thing, and it's not terribly damaging, certainly in these low permeability reservoirs. Well, I hit that wrong button again. Sorry. Okay, controversies. Do complex fractures exist? Well, if you run 20,000 to 30,000 barrel stages, and you run them every 200 feet, and you drill a lateral 300 feet away from it, and there's no depletion, it tells me we don't have single planar bi-wing fractures. And if you've seen microseismic or DIT technology, that's reality. The complexity, the massive amount of surface area we're creating with these thin fluids is amazing. And fighting that is a problem. Now, sometimes we have to run gel, and even crosslink gel, we have serious tortuosity, but break it and get back to the thinner fluids. Okay. High strength proppant required. Is that a controversial deal? I don't think it's so much anymore. I mean, wake up and smell the roses. Why do I think that we're not getting crushing or embedment at 15,000 feet? And we have pumped sand at 15,000 feet. I think you must have drawdown in the rock to cause the closure. And you can't get any drawdown in real time in 200 nanodarcy rock. Now, is that the reason it's not going, or is it some complex thing that's far beyond? Don't really care. But it's kind of sad. Really good company, Saint-Gobain, Carbo Ceramics, Syntex, good product, good systems. Do we still use it? Yes, we do when we get into permeable reservoirs. There you get closure and you do get crushing. Okay? Which of any of the 600 plus chemicals used as stated in Gasland are really required? That's a pretty serious thing here in the building we're at. And there are some things that are required. Obviously, we got to have friction reduction, obviously. Some of the other things that we've seen, remarkable things occurring, I'm going to turn this into sales a deal, because most of you know I've been working with Flowtech, and really the nanosurfactants, about the only thing I've seen in the last 30 years that's really changed. So you know frac fluids have not changed. When we had the shortage of guar, people brought back CMC and all that. It's brand new magical stuff. It wasn't worth a crap when we had it the first time. But we brought it back and changed the names, sometimes I haven't even changed the name. We need some new technology. We need research. We need people like this in our industry. We've been dead center for a long time. Will high proppant pack conductivity eliminate the need for high volumes in nanodarcy reservoirs? If you don't understand that, come to one of my schools or spend some time with me, we'll talk about that. We don't need I-10 when we've got ants coming out of the side of the hill. And it ain't gonna help you. You need massive amounts of surface area in low permeability. We've known that since day one. And to think we can run high conductivity proppant and drain something very short with low surface area baffles my mind. Okay. Okay, what do fractures look like? Everybody's seen some of this. This is actually 3 laterals up in Denton, Texas. And I think I know why fracturing got voted out of Denton, Texas. We only had about 120 trucks, and it was in the middle of a neighborhood, and some of them didn't like them trucks stacked up all over the neighborhood and everything. But